What's good, guys? Welcome back to another video. Today I want to break down the defensive line of the Miami Dolphins. But before I do need to say a few things, and please do not skip this part as there is an announcement in there that I don't want you guys to miss. So don't skip this part. Please watch through this next couple minutes as it's really important for you guys as it's a major announcement. So just before we dive into the video, thank you guys so much for 1,000 subscribers. Like, I don't know what else to say. Honestly, I'm so genuinely thankful to all of you. Like, thank you so much. Just thank you. Shout out to anyone who supported the videos, like genuinely, whether you liked, commented, or subscribed, obviously. Anyone who shared the video on Twitter or Reddit or wherever, I just thank you. Honestly, we hit it so fast that I have nothing planned for it, even though I think it's a huge accomplishment and a major milestone so far, but seriously, like, all I can say is just thank you. With that in mind, I actually purchased a microphone, as I know it's something that you guys have mentioned, like, obviously very nicely in the comments, and trust me, I'm well aware of how bad my microphone that I'm currently using is, so I was very excited to go and get that. I spent a decent amount of money on it, which doesn't really matter, but I'm just saying it's just an investment into the channel that I'm excited to make, and I'm excited for it to come in for my next piece of content to drop with that new microphone. I'm just so excited. So yeah, on the subject of improving my content, by the way, if you do see a rebrand, I'm not sure if I'm going to do it, but if you do see a rebrand with a new logo and banner, it's still me, just doing a little bit of a rebrand, so I feel like I should be transparent on that. So just so that you're aware. With that out of the way, I want to make a major announcement. I will be live reacting to every single Miami Dolphins game this year, right here on this YouTube channel, starting this Saturday, August 13th, against the Buccaneers, when the Miami Dolphins take on the Buccaneers for their first preseason game. Again, I will be live right here on this YouTube channel, and I'm so excited for it. And we'll obviously be going through all the games after that. So through the regular season and hopefully the playoffs, I will be live reacting to every single game right here on this YouTube channel. Make sure you put that reminder in your calendar, as we will be live right here. And even for the preseason games, again, we're starting this Saturday, August 13th against the Bucks. I will be live reacting to that game on this channel, which another thing I'm just so excited for. Another thing which I'll officially kind of get into later, but I think you should be aware of now while I'm on the topic, I will be starting to live stream on Twitch, which will start when Madden 23 comes out, which I'll get into more important details later, but that is just something to show you that you know. And obviously right now we're a little bit ahead of that, but if you want to know more, please follow me on Twitter, where I'm always talking about kind of the future and what I'm doing. So please follow me on Twitter, and obviously if you want to see those Twitch live streams, my Twitch link is in the description, as it's always been there, so definitely go follow me there if you want to see that. Now, with all of that housekeeping out of the way, which I know it was a lot, let's dive right into breaking down this Miami Dolphins defensive line. We'll begin with the undrafted free agents that the Miami Dolphins just added in Owen, Carney Jr., Ben Stille, and Jordan Williams. These are all undrafted free agents who weren't selected in this year's draft, and we signed as a free agent after the fact. I'll be completely honest, all these guys seem like practice squad players at most to me right now. I will mention that Ben Stille has performed the best at training camp, so that's a little tidbit for you as who's performed the best out of the three. But even though he's performed the best, I still expect all three to either be on the practice squad or just outright released. Next up, let's talk about Benito Jones, who is also an undrafted free agent just in 2020, and he's another guy who I expect to make the practice squad, as all the guys who I talk about after him are all guys I expect to make the team, so it just seems fitting to put him here and talk about him now, as we are talking about guys who probably won't make the team. And he probably has a leg up on the other guys, as he's been a part of the team to make that practice squad, but again, that's all he'll be at most, at least for me right now. A little bit of background on Benito Jones while I'm talking about him. He's a 6'1", 318-pound defensive tackle who's played in 6 career games and put up just 2 tackles. He spent the entirety of last year on the Dolphins practice squad, and that's honestly probably where he will be this year. I just don't see him making the active roster, especially with the amount of talent ahead of him, even with the release of Adam Butler. Adam Butler was just released due to a failed physical, and the transaction saves the Dolphins $4.15 million, and there's no penalty or dead cap associated, as I believe they just used the potential out that they had, which Chris Greer opted to use. He was honestly pretty underrated and very effective in the snaps that he did play. He followed Brian Flores and Josh Boyer from New England to Miami when he signed here in 2020, and the move wasn't even that surprising just because of the way his contract was structured. It wasn't expected though. The guy who has actually been positively impacted by Adam Butler's release is actually Jenkins, who by all accounts has been having a great camp so far, and that might just make the loss of Adam Butler sting a little bit less. Before coming to Miami, he was a little bit of a journeyman, which are his words and not mine. But
I've been somewhat of a journeyman, right? Like, let's be real with each other. I've been like a journeyman.
He's found a home recently here in Miami. He's primarily a nose tackle and is honestly a decent backup, but he shouldn't see much playing time unless someone in front of him gets hurt. While he brings solid value on the field, his leadership and locker room presence brings just as much, if not more, value to the team.
Listening. You know, I was fortunate enough to have some good vets, right? When I first came in the league, y'all know T. Armstead is here, you know, Morstead, those two guys I was with in New Orleans, right? And when me and Armstead got in the league, I had like Jonathan Vilma, you know, I had like Kenyon Coleman, Jabari Greer, all those guys, you know, rest in peace, Will Smith. Like, I had those guys who were champions and you know, led by example. But one thing they did, even though they made us do a lot of stuff, they listened to us, you know? And I think having a young group that want to be better, you know, that want to do good, you can see with their work ethic. So now I think for us old heads, we have to listen to, you know, how they go about things and how they react to things and their approach to a lot of things. And then once we can understand their angle, you know, then we can just guide them on the right path, you know. And as y'all can see when y'all here, y'all see these guys actually, you know, busting their behind and actually one competitive and both back and forth is an up and down flow, offense, defense, you know, and I enjoy that. I like that, right? So I think that's one of the things being a vet is being able to listen to the locker room, being able to listen to the guys individually, and being able to help them find a solution to get better and want to do good and stay on a positive, you know, stay in a positive direction.
He's just a good guy who improves morale and has a lot of experience in the NFL. I believe it's over 10 years now. He's been in the league since 2013 and bounced around from team to team until he signed here in 2019. Since then, since 2019, he's been a member of the Dolphins except for a 11-game stint with the Chicago Bears in 2020. Other than that, there's not much to say as he'll be a decent backup if Raekwon Davis gets hurt, and he's a great guy to have in your locker room. Speaking of Raekwon Davis is a 6'7", 330-pound defensive tackle who has played nose tackle for the Miami Dolphins ever since he was drafted in the 2020 NFL Draft.
With the 56th pick in the 2020 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Raekwon Davis, defensive tackle, Alabama.
He played his collegiate career at Alabama, where he played 43 games and put up 175 tackles, with 19.5 of those being for a loss. He's an absolute massive interior defender and does a great job to absorb multiple blockers, and has done a great job at that so far in his NFL career. With Miami, he's put up 68 total tackles, with 2 of them being for a loss, and 26 starts over his first 2 years in the NFL. While there isn't any simple stat to show how good of a run defender he really is, there is a sample which I can show you which really describes and demonstrates how much he affects his team on the run defending side of things. Last year, Raekwon Davis missed 4 games, the first 4 of the Miami Dolphins season, after injuring himself after playing just 5 snaps against the New England Patriots. In those 4 games, the Miami Dolphins were ranked 27th out of all NFL teams in opponents' rushing yards per game, where they allowed 137 yards against them in the run game. After that, by the end of the season, where Raekwon Davis was playing about 50% of defensive snaps for every game after that, obviously rotating because of our nickel-based defense, our run defense skyrocketed to 13th in the entire NFL, where we allowed just 109 rushing yards per game. And that sample is for the entire year, so imagine how much lower that second sample would be if we didn't include those first 4 games. Basically, the run defense was clearly superior by a large margin when Raekwon Davis was suited up for the Miami Dolphins. Obviously, it wasn't the sole factor for that, but I think he played a decent role in the run defense improving as drastically as it did. So he's already a pretty good run defender at 25 years old, and he still has a bunch of years to keep improving at that. I also think that he can add some pass rushing chops, as he did have 11.5 total sacks in college, but I don't know if we'll use him in that type of role. So we'll see on that. But for now, in rushing downs, in heavy formations, he will continue to thrive as an interior run defender for the Miami Dolphins. Zach Sieler is another fantastic run defender, but unlike Raekwon Davis, he's shown to be effective in the pass game as well. He's a 6'6", 305-pound interior defensive lineman who might just be the most underrated player in the entire NFL. His story is also awesome, as he was a 7th round pick back in 2018 from the Baltimore Ravens, but he could just never land a spot on their active roster, usually being on their practice squad. And then one of the times the Baltimore Ravens waived him to send him to the practice squad, he's awarded to the Miami Dolphins off waivers in 2019. And at this point, he was living in a trailer, just living off that practice squad player salary. And I wouldn't usually say something like that, but we'll get to that point later. Anyways, after he was awarded off waivers back in 2019, he finally played for the Dolphins in 2020, where he broke out with the Dolphins just by playing 16 games. That would already be a breakout of what he's done before in the league. But he also started 8 of them, putting up 48 tackles, 11 for loss with 11 quarterback hits, and 3.5 sacks while playing 50% of snaps. And to be honest, it makes sense because we have so many quality pieces on this defensive line. It makes sense to keep rotating them and keep them fresh whenever they're on the field. After that season, he was able to land a contract that will keep him in Miami through 2023, where he's earned around $4.5 million from the Dolphins thus far, and will probably end up making around $10.7 million total from his career after this current contract. Which I'm only saying this because his fantastic story continues to write itself, as I believe to this day, as we're all led to believe to this day, he's still living in his trailer. I promise I'm not judging him. I'm genuinely just sharing how cool his story is, as I know a lot of people, if they went from making what he was making to what he's making now, they would not make that same life choice. And I just think it's a really cool thing. Now let's get back to football, obviously, where last year in 2021 he became an amazing run defender. He was among the best run defenders at his position on the interior defensive line. He played in all 17 games, starting 9 of them, and had 62 combined tackles, 6 of them being for a loss, 3 quarterback hits, and 2 sacks. He was top 10 for tackles among all interior defensive linemen, and he did that while just playing 46% of snaps, which is really interesting because Aaron Donald and Cameron Hayward are around that same range, and he was up there with them even though he only played 46% of snaps, but we know they play obviously a lot more, so it's really cool to see him up there with those big names. Last year, post of the year in 2020, he did less as a pass defender, but he really improved in the run game, as he became one of the best run defenders in all of football, and no one outside of Miami really talks about him or even knows about him, which speaks volumes to the amount of talent that is on this Miami Dolphins defensive line when a guy like Sieler is hidden from the rest of the league. On the other end of that spectrum, where a guy who is pretty well known around the NFL is Emmanuel Ogbah. Emmanuel Ogbah is a 6'4", 275-pound defensive end, who is a very well-rounded defender as he thrives in the passing game and is just so solid in the run game. And because of how good he's been with Miami so far, he just signed a 4-year deal worth $65 million, where $32 million of that was guaranteed. It's honestly a pretty good deal for both the player and the team, as he's been consistently well above average since he joined Miami. After starting his career as a second-round pick back in 2016 with the Cleveland Browns, he was never able to become more than a rotational pass rusher, where in his rookie year, he put up 5.5 sacks, and the 2 years following with Cleveland, he was never able to top it. After those 3 years with Cleveland, he moved to Kansas City, where he just started 4 games, and put up 5.5 sacks. That was back in 2019, and in 2020, the Miami Dolphins signed Emmanuel Ogbah to a 2-year, $7.5 million deal, $15 million total. And he outplayed that contract pretty easily. Clearly, Brian Flores, Josh Boyer, and Chris Greer saw some unrecognized talent in Emmanuel Ogbah, and after playing him in their scheme, he became an integral part of this talented defense. In his first year with the Dolphins, he played 77% of defensive snaps, which is very high for a rotation-heavy defense. It just goes to show what they thought of him as a player and how important they thought he really was, and how important he was to that defense, where he put up 42 tackles, 6 of them being for a loss, 21 quarterback hits, and 9 sacks. He also put up 14 quarterback hurries and 36 pressures. Not to mention, when he couldn't win his pass rushing rep, he did great to still impact the game, as he still swatted balls a lot and batted balls down at the line of scrimmage, where he defended 5 passes in 2020, which is pretty impressive from that defensive line and edge rushing position. In 2021, he continued that success in this defensive scheme, playing 67% of snaps, where he put up 41 tackles, 9 of them being for a loss, 24 quarterback hits, and another 9 sacks, which led the team, by the way. He also improved and upped his hurries and pressures to 15 and 39 respectively, and he continued that success of playing the ball while it's in the air, even from that defensive line position, where he led all front 7 defenders in all of the NFL in passes defended with 12. Here is where he ranks over the last 2 years for a couple of statistics that I really think shows how good of a player he is. He's 13th in sacks, 5th in quarterback hits, and 7th in quarterback hurries among all edge rushers over the last 2 years. And he's in elite company with TJ Watt, Myles Garrett, Joey Bosa, and Shaq Barrett, who are the only players, along with Emmanuel Ogbah obviously, who have put up 60+ pressures over the last 2 years. I bring up those ranks because with his new contract. He is the 17th highest paid edge rusher in the entire NFL. So as you can see, it's pretty solid value for the Dolphins and for the player. He's just really good, and I'm genuinely excited for him to be on the team for most likely the next 4 years. Speaking of a guy who I'd like to be on the team for the next 4 years, Christian Wilkins. He's playing on the 5th-year option where he's going to make around $10.7 million for this 1 year. And I'm really hoping that Miami Dolphins can find an extension with the player because he was so truly dominant last year at just 26 years of age. Christian Wilkins is a 6'4", 310-pound defensive lineman who was drafted with the 13th overall pick in the 2019 NFL Draft.
With the 13th pick in the 2019 NFL Draft, the Miami Dolphins select Christian Wilkins, defensive tackle, Clemson.
He's not a guy who's going to put up double-digit sacks, even though he has steadily improved as a pass defender, and he does play a role that isn't that glorious. With that being said, he's still elite at what he does, which is being truly dominant as a run defender. While he struggled to get going and put it together early in his career, this past year he really broke out into one of the league's best run defenders at the interior defensive lineman position. His ability to not just be a pure run stopper and be able to have some sort of impact on the pass also improved last year. He put up 4.5 sacks, which is more than his first 2 years of his career combined, which was the same for his 10 tackles for loss and 13 quarterback hits, which both went up from 7 of those respective stats from his first 2 years of his career combined. All those pass defense numbers are fine and improving, but like I said, where he's elite, where he's truly elite, is his ability to be a run stopper. Last year, he had 89 tackles, playing in just 65% of defensive snaps, which that tackle number was tied for first in the league among all interior defensive linemen with Cameron Hayward, who's a 3-time All-Pro and a 5-time Pro Bowler, who, by the way, played 82% of snaps, which obviously is a discrepancy of 17% and a difference of 221 snaps. So that means he tied for the league lead and tied Cameron Hayward in sacks when playing 221 less snaps. So imagine if he played the same amount of snaps as Cameron Hayward, he might have wiped the floor with him and took that lead for himself. Other stats back him too. For defensive tackles, Christian Wilkins ranks 2nd in defensive run stop win rate. Run stop win rate is a metric that quantifies if a defender earned a win based on the following: beating his blocker so he's in better position to stop the runner, disrupting the pocket or running lane by pushing the blocker backwards, containing the runner such that he must adjust his running lane, recording a tackle within 3 yards of the line of scrimmage. And like I said, he ranks 2nd in that metric. Basically, like it says in the title and thumbnail, he is a dominant run stopper. Not to mention this year, he's been just as good, if not better, in camp, which can only mean good things. Him and Sieler, for that matter, have both weared the orange practice jersey for the Miami Dolphins, which means they were the best performing player at practice. Now, I don't read too much into training camp, but it can't be a bad thing that they're performing well in camp so far. So that's kind of how I see the defensive line group coming together. To be honest, the release of Butler made it less crowded and easier to identify who would actually make the team. Emmanuel Ogbah and Christian Wilkins should be mainstays, with Raekwon Davis and Sieler rotating in often, with John Jenkins being ready to play in case of injury, and to be honest, the rest of the guys in the video, like I mentioned before, I doubt they make the 53-man active roster. Before we end the video, I just want to thank you guys again for 1,000 subscribers. It's a huge milestone and I'm just so thankful. And you guys should be ready to go for our first live stream again this Saturday, August 13th, where the Miami Dolphins will take on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for their first preseason game, which will obviously be live right here on the YouTube channel. For more updates and kind of plans going forward, please make sure to follow me on Twitter at 416J, as that's where you can kind of get that sort of information. So with that being said, thanks for watching and I'll see you next time, and extend Christian Wilkins.